And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. We've just had a recent long-duration M-class flare sparking a minor proton event during the coronal hole high-speed stream. While there is indeed a coronal mass ejection on our way, we'll tell you all about it. Also, that hurricane has done exactly what we suggested it would here at the Smash News Network least busted name in news. This is the past 24 hours. From the SDO, that's the 304 angstroms wavelength, it's ionized helium. And you see that long-duration M-class flare there up in the upper right, the northwestern limb, exactly where we stated solar flares were most likely. They're still very likely in that northwestern limb. And here is an extreme close-up. So that filament that you're going to see collapse and partially eject, that one was one of the ones that got a name by one of our viewers. Make sure you follow us on Twitter if you want to name filaments after living people. And we're going to show you a lot more spectacular imagery of the closest star today, and thanks for stargazing with us. Thanks to our new subscribers. Thanks to everybody who's pressed that like button. So, let's talk about the channel for a brief moment here. If you haven't seen our community posts, please check those out. Just click the community tab there on the main YouTube channel page. And we'd like to celebrate the slow death of the Grand Solar Minimum cult. However, there are still plenty of other cults to cover. If you haven't heard about the Suspicious Observers pseudoscientific doomsday cult, well, we put up a post about it because lots of people are being bamboozled. Now, I watched the channel for the comedic value. It is hilarious to watch the living cult leader known as Ben Davidson make a fool of himself. However, I suspect that hundreds of thousands of people are watching the channel because they think that it is science. And it is basically some recycled Doug Vogt nonsense. So, yeah, check out the community post there. And if you've got a strong stomach, maybe go check out the channel too. We didn't actually link it there. We are suggesting that Andrew Gold do a documentary on it because, you know, for some reason cults, well, I know exactly why the reason is, because cults have to isolate themselves from reality. Remember, folks, there are three basic features to all cults. One, it has to have a living leader. Two, it has to be harmful. And three, it has to believe nonsense. So, I mean, the main nonsense that Suspicious Observers viewers seem to believe is that Earth's axis is going to suddenly shift because the galaxy is going to spookily make the sun explode. And, yeah, it's this theory called the galactic current sheet that is some recycled electric universe nonsense coupled with some Doug Vogt nonsense. If you're not familiar with Doug Vogt, here's a little clip of Doug Vogt. We'll, yeah, let's briefly show that. That'll be fun. Now, this is from Dave Farina's channel, Professor Dave Explains. And the title of this video is Suspicious Observers is a Pseudoscientific Doomsday Cult, and I couldn't agree more. Here's a little clip.
88 plus the 26, you get over 100 years.
Ben just lifted this garbage and repurposed it to fit his narrative, selling it to his viewers as a catastrophe cycle.
Anyway, the theory is, again, that the galaxy is very spooky. It's going to make the sun explode. And this video contains some fascinating information. So, yeah, check it out. It is pretty sweet. From Professor Dave Explains. And, yeah, so incidentally, the Suspicious Observers is building a compound out in a desolate portion of Colorado, complete with a school. So if that's not creepy enough for you, I don't know what is. And of course, one of the comments refers to the fact that, oh, you don't have alternative theories. Well, it turns out I do have alternative theories. In science, we find ourselves sometimes with answers to questions not asked, which is what happened to me. So that's why I'm writing a paper explaining the mechanism underlying the sunspot cycles. It's my CRAPF theory. Yeah, CRAPF, C-R-A-P-F. And if you want to read it before it ever reaches peer review or publishing, then become a member of the Smash team at the gold level, and you can read all about it at smashomash.com/smash team. Again, it does require a gold level membership because, well, we need funding to keep the channel in existence and keep these videos free, publicly visible. And again, existent, smashomash.com/smashteam. So we do send out email alerts about videos just like this one daily. After all, we are the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content, and we do show the most detailed imagery of the sun, as we've showed you right at the beginning of the video. And of course, you'll find all kinds of things that are only for gold level members, only silver level members, only bronze level members, and so on. And again, we are doing various things in order to keep the channel in existence. So thanks to everybody who has supported the channel over the past 6+ years. And let's cut back to some more imagery of the closest star here before we talk about volcanoes and earthquakes and so on. So here's yesterday plus today from the SDO continuum. One new sunspot did form in the past 24 hours. However, it rapidly evaporated. So you might see a small pore right here by my pointer, right in there. It formed and went away as quickly as it formed. So besides that, mostly stable here. Very high likelihood of large solar flares, especially up there in that northwestern limb, the exact place we saw the most recent large flare. And of course, this is not a coincidence. Solar flares are predictable based on the magnetic shear. There is the colorized magnetogram for yesterday plus today. That is September 13th and September 14th to date. Next, let's cut to volcanoes. We cover them daily, and turns out Shivaluch is creating some new real estate on the peninsula of Kamchatka. Yeah, Kamchatka. So there is some new real estate there from Shivaluch, as one of the lava domes has collapsed, and now there is an effusive lava flow coming out of that area. So Shivaluch there, continuing to erupt. Fumarolic activity from the lava dome, accompanied by near-constant emissions of steam-laden plumes. Mount Mayon in the Philippines also erupting, unknown volcanic ash plume over Mount Mayon. Luatolo effusively exploding as well. No idea the ash plume there. Don't fly your hang glider over the Luatolo caldera. Kilauea here. Like we said yesterday, it's continuing to make some lava cones there, some cinder cones being formed around the Halema Uma'u lava lake. Some small lava fountains also happening there at Kilauea, so it continues to erupt. Fuego in Guatemala exploding, flight level 150. It is a 15,000-foot plume of volcanic ash there over Guatemala from Fuego as it explodes. 22,000-foot ash plume over Nevado del Ruiz. It's also exploding. Flight level 220. Flight level 240 over Sangay in Ecuador, and flight level 250 over Sabancaya. Both of those also exploding. Sabancaya in Peru, Sangay in Ecuador. It's a flight level 250. 25,000-foot ash plume over Peru from Sabancaya. Next is our featured product, which is Universum Liberate. Because if I could wave my magic wand, to quote Geddy Lee, I'd set everybody free. Maybe that's too reckless for you. I don't know. Some people do deserve to be in prison for sure. And the good news is, folks, that accountability always comes. Whether it's on the local scale, the county scale, the state scale, the regional, the national, the hemispheric scale, the planetary scale, or even the solar system scale, accountability always comes. So tell your friends and foes, Universum Liberate. It is the motto of the Galactic Federation Special Forces, so pick up some merch, support the Galactic Federation Special Forces, and support the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. You'll find lots of other designs linked to our Redbubble shop below this video. You can also find links on the homepage at smashomash.com. Universum Liberate. Convince your friends and foes that you're a member of the Illuminati by having Latin on your shirt or perhaps on your comforter. Today's featured product from the Amazon shop is the Go Wise air fryer. If you haven't gotten an air fryer yet, check it out. I mean, an air fryer is a crucial portion of our kitchen. I don't know what we would do without it at this point. It's only $57 roughly there if you get it in that plum color. Totally sweet. If you don't have an air fryer yet, pick one up from our Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/smashomash, also linked below the video and on the homepage. And you can also find links to the Hemp Lucid shop below this video and on the homepage. Smashomash.com is the homepage. So perhaps pick up your CBDs, mushroom gummies, and other products there like body balms from our Hemp Lucid shop. Increase the probability these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible and free for all to view, thanks to all of our affiliates/sponsors for increasing that likelihood. Next, on to earthquakes. We'll cite quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude before we get back to space-type stuff. There's the past 90 days. from volcanodiscovery.com, and here's the USGS site. These are the quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude. A 5.2 in New Caledonia at 16:45 Universal Time yesterday afternoon. They're north of New Zealand and Eritrea. Seeing a 5.0, that was at 17:51 Universal Time. Yesterday on September 14th, Northern Colombia had a 5.1. And that was early this morning. So a big lull in activity there, and then a 5.1 this morning. And that is it. Those are the quakes that we'll be covering. And here we'll return to space. There is the past 24 hours from the SDO 171 angstroms wavelength. And here we'll zoom in a little bit closer to show you that picturesque long-duration M-class flare up in the northwestern limb. How you like them apples? All right, so the 10.7 centimeter radio flux now all the way down to 134 solar flux units. 143 solar flux units. That radio signal comes out of the upper chromosphere and lower corona, this area right down here, known as the transition zone. And it is very important as it is a directly proportional data set to the sunspot number. So there is the 1 year graph of the radio flux and the sunspot number depicted by the black line and red lines respectively. And Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard here, Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard is forecasting some geomagnetic unrest early in the day tomorrow. That looks like the stealthy coronal mass ejection that we forecasted a few days ago. So expect one to arrive late today and or early tomorrow. It might be a little stronger than what they're forecasting here. We could see as high as a mid KP6. A minor G2 level geomagnetic storm condition could erupt from that. It all depends on the magnetic field strength and orientation. And let's take a look at Earth's magnetic moment from space. Like I said earlier in the video, we are experiencing a coronal hole high-speed stream at the moment. It's not super fast. The density wave wasn't super high, but it is an elevated solar wind, so that's something. It counts as space weather. That's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space, our geospace magnetosphere movie. Here's our ground magnetic perturbations map. That is Earth's magnetic moment from the ground level. It depicts magnetic flux density, the units of which are nanotesla. And these will be the most likely places to see aurora. And by the way, we've shared some auroral imagery once again on Twitter. So make sure you follow us over there. If you are on social media besides YouTube, Twitter might be a good place to interact, as it is where we do the most interacting. We talk about cults, we talk about politics, we talk about economics, we talk about space weather, and various other sciences. There's the past 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. KP2 is the current situation. It is a geomagnetically calm situation. Again, we're expecting to see possibly as high as a G2 geomagnetic storm sometime early tomorrow or late tonight even could start. So that's the situation. And the current solar wind parameters are just under 500 kilometers per second. For the velocity, solar wind density here about 10.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Again, it is a coronal hole high-speed stream, and it's a fairly weak one. So also, once again, the magnetic field orientation really does make a huge difference here. If that was a stronger field with a strong negative BZ, we might see some geomagnetic storm conditions caused by that. And keep in mind, the magnetic field can shift pretty much unexpectedly. GOES magnetometers here have been pretty chill. Been seeing lower highs and lower lows for the past 3 days on the GOES 16 and GOES 18's magnetometers from their geosynchronous near equatorial orbits. And let's talk about the top view ecliptic plane field plot. So there is a North Pole current sheet looking like it's headed this way. Let's look at the last image there. Weak North Pole current sheet there. So that might even evaporate. Yeah. That's That's what's going on in terms of the polarity of the solar plasma. So Earth is in a south pole current sheet. There might be a rapid transition to a north pole and then back to a south pole current sheet in the coming 24 hours. Again, there's the latest image. There's a small little north pole current sheet popping up over here to the east. That should arrive before the day ends, assuming that we don't see any sudden sunspot formation or growth on the eastern limb. That could very much change things. It could extend the North Pole current sheet, or it could make it shrink down to where it doesn't exist anymore. So again, the magnetic environment can change suddenly. Here is our line of sight field plot. One of the more important features here to show you what's really going on with the sun there, it's showing the north and south polar fields in green and red respectively, the solar B field in blue, which brings us to coronal holes. Another super important feature of a solar cycle, which we've been showing the progression of in shockingly high detail for the past 6+ years. Our coronal hole line of sight plot is depicting mostly south pole oriented coronal holes here, draped across the center of the solar disk. Like yesterday, seeing North Pole coronal holes here in the northwest and the southeast. Let's take a look at those through the watchful eye of the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And there are the past 24 hours in ionized iron, 211 angstroms. A great wavelength not only to show coronal holes, but also filaments, active regions, and the extended corona. By the way, we've got some extreme close-ups of that huge filament down there in the southwestern limb, the lower right. We've named that one the Eugene Bagashov filament. This one that collapsed up here, one of our viewers named it the Selena Gomez filament. We try to name the ones first that are the most likely to eject, and so that's why that one got the name it did. Period. Facts. Yeah, facts, folks. If you understand the physics behind things in nature, or at least the way the things correlate, you too can forecast all kinds of interesting stuff, like sunspots. All right, sunspots are pretty tough to forecast, but nonetheless, this is what's going on in the current situation. And like we've been saying for days, the most likely place for a large solar flare remains the northwestern limb. So there's the latest solar flare probability there. And of course, let's see, number 5 also. So 3429, also honorable mention there, has significant magnetic shear as it is a beta gamma delta class sunspot group, also 3423. So of course, its proximity to the limb makes it much more likely, as keep in mind the Earth facing quiet is approximately in this area. So that's just a fact. Statistically speaking, flares more likely, especially large ones, at the limbs. Next, the past 24 hours in ionized carbon. That's 1600 angstroms from SDO. And you might see a lot of brightening there above that setting sunspot. It's a lot of carbon showing up there right near the sun's surface. It's not a coincidence. It's being built through a process known as nuclear fusion. Perhaps some nuclear fission also going on there, but nonetheless, lots of carbon being produced in that area. It's not just mysteriously showing up from the greater solar system. So that's 1600 angstroms. We'll also show 171 plus the SDO continuum, which does a great job of highlighting the lower corona. That's the 171 angstroms. And of course, the photosphere is the continuum portion. You can see the way those potential field surface lines do indeed connect to those umbrae. Let's subtract the 171 angstroms. Again, this small pore did open and then re-evaporate, so that one will probably never get a name, but besides that, those sunspot groups largely stable for the past 24 hours. Next, we'll talk energetic flares and energetic particles and flares is what I meant to say. So let's take a look at the GOES proton flux here, which did see some little tiny undulations there, some tiny upticks there in the GOES proton flux associated with that large long duration M-class flare this morning. And there is that long flare. The peak flux was right around 7:40 Universal Time this morning on September 14th. So it lasted quite a long time. It was in the M-class range there for about an hour and 20 minutes. And let's take a look from the SDO. So here's another 24-hour video from the SDO. We do have a weak active region rising down there in the lower left. Last I checked, it was not a sunspot. We'll show you high-res imagery of that toward the end of the video. Of course, the main action remains in the northwestern limb. And what's that? You want a closer view? Okay, I suppose we could probably accommodate you there. Here's a little closer view. The kind of view that you may refer to as the money shot. I wouldn't blame you. You wouldn't be wrong. And what's this? That's not enough. You want more imagery of the latest large solar flare? Okay, how about 131 angstroms? How about an extreme close-up? There, the Selena Gomez filament partially collapses and partially ejects out of the northwest. So you see a filament there, the dark feature, and whoops! Part of it goes down, part of it goes out, up and to the right, the northwest. Dag. Here's 94 angstroms. By the way, these are both species of ionized iron as well. These are the two best wavelengths to view flares through the SDO. They take 10 images per minute, 5 more than the rest of the wavelengths. They're specifically formulated to view solar flares. And so is our channel. Here we've put 171 angstroms with the 131. And we've also got 304 plus 171. So now we've switched to ionized helium plus ionized iron. Man, oh man. Those are some sweet images. And if you haven't pressed the like button, what are you waiting for? All right, let's talk about some more space stuff, like what's going on overhead. You know, did you know that space is even up there in the daytime, folks? A lot of people are saying space is fake. You know, we get some ridiculous comments on the channel. People saying on the regs, space is fake. And I just say, you ever go out at nighttime and look up and you see those little points of light up there? Those are in space, just like the planet on which you live, space. Welcome to it. If you're up before dawn, you might see Venus and Mercury, two planets also in space like the sun. And if you don't believe in space, you're lost in space. That is our star chart from skyandtelescope.org. And if you're viewing the pre-dawn sky, you might see Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury all rising ahead of the sun there. Also, the extremely small sliver of a new moon up there. In fact, it might be nothing of a new moon. I'm not sure. Before we do our solar system forecast, let's talk about this sweet galaxy. Great view of a spiral galaxy there. That is NGC 7331, NGC 7331, folks. And a lot of people think that galaxy might be very similar in structure to the Milky Way galaxy. Of course, it's located quite farther away. This one was not part of Messier's catalog. That's why it doesn't have an M in front of it. It's just the new general catalog. NGC 7331, today's astronomy photo of the day. And a bunch of neighboring galaxies there. I'm not sure if those are satellites or if those are smaller galaxies or if they're in the background. Located in the constellation Pegasus. apod.nasa.gov, and here comes your solar system forecast. There's where things are today. By the way, the gas giants aren't going to kill you. And let's advance this 1 week. Looks like tomorrow is new moon. That is where things will be on the solstice. Not the solstice, the equinox. That's September 21st. The equinox. It's got to be sometime around then. I don't know. We might stream live during it. Who knows? Who knows? It's all up in the air, folks. Just like the existence of this channel. So again, don't forget to press the like button. Once again, thanks to our new subscribers. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. By the way, here's another article. This one's from SciTech Daily. This is about an open cluster. So this is the Hyades cluster. And open clusters are different than globular clusters in that they are not orbiting a central location. They are gravitationally bound. However, they're not like in a spherical shape. So the Hyades cluster there, it's about 45 parsecs, or about 150 light years from our solar system. And it is believed to have several very massive objects, massive radio sources, commonly referred to as black holes. So this imagery is part of the Gaia mission, which is a very provocative mission to attempt to make a detailed map of the Milky Way. So again, you can find that article on SciTech Daily. And that great imagery there. The nearest black holes to our solar system there located in the Hyades cluster. It's not quite as famous as the Pleiades cluster. But again, you can check that article out there. We didn't want to cover too much cosmology today, as it is a busy day when it comes to space and Earth weather. So let's get through the rest of the space weather portion and then move on to meteorology. So there's what's going on for coronal mass ejections. That is yesterday's imagery from George Mason University, 106 frames. Pretty quiet as far as CMEs yesterday. And today, starting out with a bang in the northwestern limb. Now that one may have an earthly directed component there, as we do see some halo-like eruptions happening from it. So I do suspect that one will have an Earth-directed component. So that one will arrive sometime late in the day on the 17th. It is sort of a normal speed coronal mass ejection. So late day 17th, expecting another CME impact. And again, we're expecting one tomorrow as well, sometime possibly late tonight or early tomorrow. So lots of stuff going on here when it comes to space weather. And here we'll pause that one. So there's the C3. That's CME coming out around 8 o'clock this morning on September 14th. Again, you do see a bit of a halo there. That very likely does have an earthly directed component. It was far enough on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk there to indeed have that. So, suspecting that to be a partially earthly directed CME. Of course, you can see most of the core there is not going to be directed toward Earth. So here's a little zoom out, or a zoom in rather. I think there is some missing data on the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. We're not going to spend too much time monkeying around with that. Just expect another CME coming on the 17th. Exciting stuff. We'll also show Stereo A, which shows some great imagery. And feel free to pause the video on this frame. We show it daily because it shows the angularity of Stereo A compared to Earth. It's finally moving out to the west and providing a little bit of ability to calculate trajectory of coronal mass ejections. So here is the difference imagery on the right. You can see there is a halo there. Here's the raw coronagraph on the left, a halo there. It is an earthly directed coronal mass ejection, at least partially. So a small component of that is indeed likely to strike Earth on, again, the 17th of September. So exciting stuff there going on when it comes to space weather. Who knew we would make so many friends and foes by talking about facts on the internet? Next, we'll talk about filaments. And geez, major filaments are indeed hanging out. So now, the Selena Gomez filament is now gone because part of it is headed toward Earth. So that was a great one to name there. Shout out to Gemma, who named that one on Twitter. If you want to name filaments after living people, do it on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. It's very simple. Just follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament, like this. And then tell us which filament you want named after living people. And then you're good. You see that? That's how it works. And whatever you do, don't join a cult. So here's the grayscale imagery. And we'll zoom in a little bit there. Of course, this filament down here in the lower right is becoming a prominence, and it is quite huge. That is the Eugene Bagashov. Make sure you follow Eugene over on YouTube as well. We're trying to get him to 1,000 subscribers there. Eugene the Philosopher, one of my pals and one of the biggest contributors ever to this channel, Eugene the Philosopher. Make sure you subscribe. If you don't, we will find you, and we will shame you. Next, here is some more imagery of the closest star. This is the 193 angstroms wavelength. Yowzers! And let's add 304 angstroms there to add additional clarity to all of those filaments. Massive number of filaments on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. So again, name those after living people and check out the Eugene Bagashov filament. Here's an extreme close-up of it. That is yet another money shot. It's an exciting day to be covering space weather. 2 CMEs on the way during a coronal hole high-speed stream. 100% successful forecast when it comes to meteorology, which is what we'll be doing after we complete our bonus feature segment. I'm excited. I might seem stoic. However, I am indeed quite enthusiastic. So, let's take a look at the past couple of hours here. There is the GOES 16 SUVI and another prominence happening there as we produce the video. Expect continued activity there in the northwestern limb. Those magnetic fields that are associated with large solar flares have not collapsed. They remain complex beta gamma delta class sunspots with a large degree of magnetic shear. Man, check out the size of that filament. That is one that could get a name as well. Let's go to bonus features. We don't want the video to be too lengthy. First, taking a brief look at the satellite community dashboard. Satellite community dashboard there showing only some minor surface charging hazards there in the eastern Pacific. Those are surface charging type hazards there. That's when low energy type electrons build up on the outside of spacecraft. Shouldn't cause any major communications breakdowns. It's only yellow, not red, surface charging hazards. Next are the GOES electron flux there. That's the past 3 days as measured by radiography with the GOES 16 and GOES 18. They're measuring it at the F layer of the ionosphere, by the way. The bridge between Earth and space. And the GOES satellites are well up there in space. That's the past 3 days of the relativistic electrons, the greater than or equal to 2 mega electron volt electron flux. There's the 1-year graph to put all of that in context. And we're seeing very low levels there, as you would come to expect if you are a regular viewer of the channel. And there you can see the observation coming in a little bit lower than the forecast. Looks like the next update will be quite close as well. That's the NOAA forecast for the relativistic electrons. Next, we'll show the layer where it's measured. What's shaken in the ionosphere, you ask? Well, there's what's shaken. That's the vibrational frequency in megahertz. All that ionized material, it emits radiation, and there's a measurement of it. And we are seeing quite a lot of low-frequency anomalies here showing up. And if that's all Greek to you, don't worry. We don't just show the ionogram, we also show the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. It does depict high-frequency anomaly in blue, low-frequency anomaly in red. And you're seeing a lot of red on there, which is typical of CME impacts and coronal hole high-speed streams. Expect to see even more red in the coming 5 days or so, as there are 2 coronal mass ejections slated to impact planet Earth. So we'll see a lot of scintillation happening there. Low-frequency anomalies are occurring when the ionosphere puffs up in response to space plasma. Those are the facts. Here's the latest image at 12:30 Universal Time for the ionogram. And there's 12:30 Universal Time for the anomalygram. We also show total electron content. It'll show you the most likely places for GPS errors. Your GPS satellite has to communicate through free electrons. Those free electrons can cause signal refraction, which can cause GPS errors of thousands of miles, especially around the equator at noon. There is the total electron content forecast. So those are the most likely places to see GPS errors, and it's actually quite organized here. So this might get a lot less orderly in the coming days, as we typically do see more electron content anomalies during times of low electron flux at the F layer. Next, we'll show the anomaly in the total electron content over the North American continent. That's anomaly from the 10-day average. And we are forecasting an uptick in the electron flux anomaly here again, because we see the most anomalies when we see low electron contents. Low electron flux, I should say. There's the latest magnetogram and latest intensitygram. So this new active region down here is not a sunspot. This region up here remains the most likely place for a large solar flare. It is still a beta gamma delta class sunspot group. Also, this group right behind it, also a beta gamma delta class sunspot group. This group over here, guess what it is, folks? Just take a guess. Just type in the comments. Pause the video, type in the comments. What class do you think that sunspot is? It's beta gamma delta class. Anyway, here ends our daily space weather video coverage, and it's time to switch to meteorology. Not to say I told you so, although I did. Here's the jet stream scenario, and check it out. The jet stream is smashing into the air mass containing Hurricane Lee. And guess what that's doing? Breaking it apart, causing it to weaken, etc., as I've been saying for days. Why? Because understanding physics means you can forecast things. Whether it's space weather, whether it's Earth weather, whether it's pretty much anything. If you know the correlation or the chicken and egg, the physics of it, you can forecast it. Facts. Facts, folks, facts. So let's take a look at a couple other parameters here. I just want to show you the sea surface temperature situation. So here is, we're going to switch this to the surface level. So there's sea surface temperature, and you've got a bunch of cold air right up here off the coast of Cape Cod. That is cold water right there. It's only 60-some degrees. Check it out. That water right there is only 64 degrees, folks, which means when this does keep going to the north, it is going to rapidly de-intensify right as it's about to make landfall, which is a good thing because it's going to drop a lot of water in that area. Again, facts. This is how hurricanes work. Cold water kills hurricanes. Also wind shear. So we showed the jet stream. We showed the sea surface temperatures. We're going to show some more in-depth forecasts here. First, we'll show the planet in its full wind pattern glory. There's the eastern world's surface wind scenario. Here is the eastern world's... Whoops. Don't do that. There are the jet streams of the east blowing backwards there over the northern Indian Ocean once again. Here are the jet streams of the central world. Surface winds looking like this. Surface winds of the west looking like this. Jet streams of the west looking like this. And here come some forecasts. So let's show the forecast for Hurricane Lee here. We're going to advance this 3 days as we've been doing here. So this is where it's expected to be Sunday at noontime. You can see it's hugely broken up. There will be some heavy winds still there. So there's the forecast. They're expecting probably something like 50-plus mile-per-hour winds there. So that is still significant. However, it doesn't look anything like a hurricane having traversed that cold water. So that's the GFS forecast. Here's the Euro forecast for that same time. Has it shifted slightly to the east. And with higher wind speeds, by the way. So, again, there's the GFS 3-day forecast, and there is the Euro 3-day forecast. Next, we'll take a look at some satellite imagery. So there is the satellite imagery of the western world. And there is Hurricane Lee as it gets pummeled by two different portions of the jet stream, causing it to break down before it even reaches that cool water. It's currently over water that's like over 80 degrees. And there you can see it entraining a bunch of dry, massive air. That is also not conducive to convection. So you see all this dry air getting entrained in here. That is a further feature that will continue to weaken Hurricane Lee long before it reaches Nova Scotia. And you can see another jet stream pulse up here about to also be involved. That hurricane has taken a beating, and it's going to continue to take a beating. Let's take a look at our weather.gov map. So there's weather.gov. We'll briefly scroll down and show you the key. Of course, a bunch of tropical storm and hurricane type warnings there around the East Coast. Some frost advisories for Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Quite cool in Pennsylvania this morning, by the way. And here comes some forecasts. Here is the GFS 72-hour jet stream forecast. We're showing you this first because the jet stream is really in control of your weather, folks. The reason most weather patterns move from west to east is because of the jet stream. It's not because of chemtrails. It's not because of HARP or geoengineering or cloud seeding or any nonsense like that. Mankind does not control large-scale weather patterns. You're looking at thousands and thousands of miles of weather patterns here. And those jet stream interactions will help to beat up that hurricane. You can see it's expected to drop down to 980 millibars of pressure there as it makes landfall. So that is a rapid decline of its pressure. Keep in mind that is the 250 millibar winds, otherwise known as the jet streams, for the next 72 hours on the GFS model. Here's the GFS model for surface pressure. That's the mean sea level pressure and 10-meter winds. You can see how rapidly those winds are going to evaporate based on the GFS model at least. As right when it gets off the coast of Cape Cod, it'll go from the high 70s. The ocean temperature will go from high 70s to the mid 60s. in a matter of only a few miles there. So a huge temperature gradient there on the ocean is good news for those not wanting to get hammered by a hurricane in Canada. Here's the GFS pressure and precipitation forecast. And last but not least, the total accumulated precipitation forecast. So like I said, you can see a lot of water being dropped there in the ocean. That's a good thing. That will also help to weaken the system and deprive it of the ability to re-strengthen. These are facts. Let's move on to our lightning mapper to see where lightning strikes have been happening, and some heavy rain coming there to Texas. So there is the lightning situation. Texas has been the lightning capital of the past about 10 hours. Do we have any terrestrial strikes? I don't know. It looks like things have calmed down, according to our real-time lightning map there from blitzertung.org. I don't know, maybe they're in Bavaria, in which case it would be called blitzertung.org. I don't know. They roll their R's in Bavaria. Quite a bit of lightning there in Europe. By the way, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to press the like button. Don't forget to visit our links like smashomash.com. We built a massive web ring to benefit people like you. Did you know that we're free speech purists, not free speech phonies on the channel? We don't delete people's comments. We don't mute or ban anybody. Nobody gets kicked. Everybody can say what they want, and if they make fools of themselves, that's on them. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. The answer to bad idiotic speech is good smart speech. Smashomash.com. We live by these rules. We are not free speech phonies. We are free speech purists. Let's close out the video with U.S. Doppler radar, clouds and fog, and the water vapor map. So there's the Doppler radar. It depicts vertical motion in the air column. The ground-based systems. Again, Doppler radar. And we're going to focus on the lower 48. So that's what's going on. Some bands of rain already hitting Maine and New Brunswick. Shout out to Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles over there on Nova Scotia. Here's clouds and fog. As wind shear shatters Hurricane Lee, exactly as forecast. There's the water vapor map, and you can see multiple areas of dry, massive air there. The jet stream there pushing down, putting cold air over places like Pennsylvania and New England. Here's your recap. Doppler radar. Clouds and fog. And there is water vapor. And once again, folks, thanks for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the Smash News Network least busted name in news exists. We hope you're able to forecast. We hope you're able to understand basic physics before you come up with insane ideas about how anything works in space or on Earth. And again, thanks to our new subscribers. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.